New York City was known as an international metropolis. Influential figures and enterprises from all over the world resided in the city. Their status far exceeded that of Washington, D.C. Their forces were much stronger than Neil and Zanger Corporation. Although Jared was the chairman of the Commerce Guild in New York City, his status wasn't that high compared to others in the city. Even so, the fall of the Garza family shook New York City to its core. Their family had been the city's economic lifeline for many years, and they also had the Hydra Protection Squad as their backer. The disappearance of the Garza family caused many wealthy families in New York City to panic. From what they knew, the Garza family had gone to Los Angeles after a consultation with a fortune teller. Why had they disappeared so suddenly? What exactly was going on here? There was a luxurious villa around 20 miles away from New York City. It consisted of a large open-air swimming pool, and it was surrounded by dense forest and pavilions. To an outsider, it would be akin to paradise. There were guards standing at the entrance as if they were preventing outsiders from trespassing on forbidden land. A large open space that was the size of a football field was in front of the villa. Hundreds of people were standing solemnly with their gazes fixed on the door. They weren't dressed in uniform, but each of them had the words Hawthorne Society embroidered somewhere on their clothes. The members of Hawthorne Society had been devastated ever since they received news of Reuben's death. They had been living here together for a long time. All of them had the same teacher, so they considered each other brothers and sisters. Reuben had gone to Washington, D.C. because of their teacher's instructions. Their teacher was waiting for Reuben to settle the situation there before heading over himself. No one had expected that things would turn out this way. After hearing about Reuben's death, his brothers and sisters gathered and headed to their teacher's villa. Although they were his students, they couldn't enter without their teacher's permission. They requested their teacher to take revenge for Reuben. After a long silence that spanned several hours, the heavy metal doors opened. The guards stepped aside, making way for their teacher's entrance. An elderly man with white hair emerged from the villa, accompanied by 10 masked subordinates. He looked sickly, and his steps were unsteady, but no one dared to look down on him. They admired him from the bottom of their hearts. To them, their teacher was a godlike existence.
"Was Reuben really killed in Washington, D.C.?"
the elderly man asked. He had heard of Reuben's death, but he had chosen not to believe the news and brushed it off as a rumor. The elderly man had taken in countless students. Many of them had left to become leaders of their own organizations. Even so, the student he was most fond of was Reuben. That was why he had entrusted such an important task to him. He had spoken to Reuben on the day before his death. Reuben had said that the situation in Washington, D.C. had been settled and that he was in control. He was waiting for him to join him. However, before the elderly man could make a trip to Washington, D.C., he was informed of Reuben's death the very next day. "It's true, Reuben's not coming back," one of his students replied.
"Reuben's abilities were extraordinary. He also had 2 skilled subordinates by his side. Whoever killed them must have been strong."
The elderly man coughed violently. After catching his breath, he looked up at his students.
"Does anyone know who did it?"
It was the night of Eventide. Ever since Neil Brandt and Zanger Corporation disappeared from Washington, D.C., Van, Nova, and Axel had been leading the underworld. Reuben took them down, but he was killed by Eventide. Now, the underworld is in his hands. Indignation flickered in the elderly man's eyes.
"Was it really Eventide? If it really was him, it makes sense. Reuben's no match for him. The commander-in-chief defeated Eventide years ago. I didn't expect he would be daring enough to enter the country and even become the leader of Washington, D.C.'s underworld. This is absurd."
"It's because of Eventide that we're waiting here for you to give us your orders," one of the students said. "We can't act rashly, but don't worry. None of us are afraid of death. We'll do our best to avenge Reuben." The rest of the students echoed his determination. "We'll take down Eventide with everything we've got. If nothing else, we have to kill him so Reuben can rest in peace." The elderly man nodded in approval.
Where's Reuben's grave? I would like to pay my respects."
The students looked at each other, not knowing how to respond. Ever since they received news of Reuben's death, they had been trying to come up with a way to ask their teacher and take revenge for him. None of them had thought of retrieving Reuben's body and holding a funeral for him. Reuben's body was still in Washington, D.C. The elderly man flew into a rage.
"You were all just saying how important it is to take revenge for him, but getting his body back has never crossed your minds. Is this how you're planning on avenging him?"
The students' blood ran cold as their teacher's anger seeped into their bones. The elderly man standing on top of the steps no longer looked sickly. Instead, he was full of vigor. The consequences of triggering their teacher's anger never ended well. His name was Atticus Hawthorne, and he was the leader of the Hawthorne Society. The history of the Hawthorne Society could be traced back to ancient times. Their organization was founded on the practice of unique martial arts, and they gradually expanded their influence and became one of the largest organizations to exist in the underworld. Students of Hawthorne Society could be found across the world. There used to be branches of this organization located overseas, but they were all gone now. Although Hawthorne Society had declined and their headquarters had been reduced to a prosperous island, their influence was not to be underestimated. They were involved in various industries, and their businesses were well developed. Their members consisted of skilled martial artists who had perfected the organization's special techniques. The influence of the Hawthorne Society spread to various underworlds across the country. Neil Brandt, who had been in control of Washington, D.C.'s underworld for decades, was backed by this organization. Although Neil had a net worth of $100 billion after his death, the dividends he had given to Hawthorne Society each year were just as high. When Neil's influence reached its peak in Washington, D.C., he had chosen to train in deep seclusion in the mountains for 30 years. This was because of the Hawthorne Society. His influence had grown so quickly that it had caught the organization's attention. If Neil didn't restrict his influence, Hawthorne Society would have come after him. He was strong, but not strong enough to clash head-on with Atticus, so he had voluntarily secluded himself in the forest to avoid confrontation. Neil had been planning to return to civilization after Atticus's death, but he had emerged from the cave earlier than expected. Unfortunately, Neil met his end before Atticus died. If he had waited a few more years and avoided his confrontation with Stephen, he would have broken free of the Hawthorne Society's clutches. Sanson Corporation and Zanger Corporation had to pay Hawthorne Society an annual fee as high as $10 billion. Hawthorne Society's influence was extensive, and to earn money in their territory meant that they had to pay a price. After Sanson Corporation, Neil, and Zanger Corporation disappeared, the annual fees that they paid on time every quarter were suddenly cut off. Atticus had a strange feeling about their disappearances, and he had also heard various rumors. He had sent Reuben to discover the truth, and at the same time, he wanted him to gain more experience. Reuben's trip to Washington, D.C. was supposed to pave the way for him to take over the position of Hawthorne Society's leader. One of the students worked up the courage to try and appease Atticus's anger. "We'll head to Washington, D.C. and bring back Reuben's body so he can rest in peace." "Forget it. I'll personally take revenge for Reuben." Atticus was old, and he knew that his time was near. He thought of Reuben as his own son, and he had been waiting for an opportunity to announce him as the successor of the Hawthorne Society. But now, he had lost this chance forever. The students grew excited because their teacher would finally be making his move. The moment the Hawthorne Society took action, chaos would sweep across the neighboring cities. Atticus had many powerful subordinates under his command. There were two main groups, the 4 Guardians and the 8 Deities. Either one of them was strong enough to kill Neil in seconds. "Kenneth, are you here?" Atticus called out. A handsome man of large stature stepped forward. Kenneth was the leader of the 8 Deities, and his nickname was Iron Hand. He had perfected a hand-to-hand combat technique. He was one of Atticus's strongest subordinates, as he was ranked first amongst the 8 Deities. "Taylor," Atticus called out. Another man stepped forward. Unlike Kenneth, Taylor specialized in techniques that involved footwork. His finishing move was said to be invincible. He was ranked last among the 4 guardians, and his strength was a bit higher than Kenneth. "Head to Washington, D.C. immediately and bring back Reuben's body," Atticus instructed. "He's no longer with us, but he should be laid to rest in his hometown." Many students volunteered to accompany Kenneth and Taylor, so Atticus asked them to bring a few of them along. With that, Kenneth and Taylor made their way to Washington, D.C. to search for the Rowe family. After Reuben was killed, the Rowe family once again fell from the peak to the bottom of the valley. They became the target of other wealthy families in the district. Quincy and Ronald kept their doors tightly shut all day long, and they hid inside their mansion in fear. Taylor kicked down the door and barged in with Kenneth and a few other students. Quincy and Ronald were surprised to see unfamiliar faces standing in their doorway. They had gotten used to the people who came to harass them, but they had never seen this particular group before. "Are you Quincy Rowe and Ronald Rowe?" Kenneth asked. "Yes, may I ask who you are?" "We're from the Hawthorne Society. We're here to avenge Reuben." Quincy put a smile on and welcomed them inside. He and Ronald had already guessed their identities. After Reuben was killed, they had predicted that members of the Hawthorne Society would come knocking on their doors. The Rowe family had all but fallen to the bottom, and they faced harassment on a daily basis. But Quincy and Ronald didn't move to another state. They stayed here and looked forward to the Hawthorne Society's arrival. The elite families of Washington, D.C. were nothing compared to them. Taylor wasn't interested in taking Quincy up on his offer. "Why? Are you inviting us into your house to drink some tea and reminisce about old times?" He grabbed Quincy's collar. "Tell me, where is Reuben's body?" Quincy shook his head in a panic. "I don't know." Taylor's eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Are you sure about that?" "I don't know, but I think there's someone who does know," Quincy added quickly. "Who?" "The Knight of Eventide. He's the leader of the underworld here." "Where is he now?" "He should be at the fighting arena. It used to be Van's territory." Taylor let go of Quincy and turned to Kenneth and the others. "Let's go." Ever since Eventide began overseeing the fighting arena, it had been filled with a lively atmosphere. He'd also recruited a group of skilled fighters. One of his subordinates hurried into the room. "A group of people barged in here. They're wrecking the place." Eventide narrowed his eyes. "Is that so?" Ever since he took over the fighting arena, no one had come to challenge him. Taylor, Kenneth, and the others rushed inside aggressively. Taylor looked around at the crowd. "Which one of you is Eventide?" A muscular and tan-skinned man walked up to them. "That's me. Why are you guys here?" "We are here for one thing. Reuben's body," Taylor said. "Reuben?" Eventide's gaze swept across the students. "Are you here to take revenge for him?" Taylor clenched his fists. "That's obvious. You killed my brother." "What are you waiting for? The person who killed him is standing right in front of you. Come at me if you want." Taylor pictured 1,000 ways he could torture Eventide before killing him. Before he could make a move, Kenneth grabbed his arm, signaling for him to calm down. "With our strength alone, we won't be able to kill you that easily," Kenneth said. "We're only here to ask for Reuben's body. We would like to bury him." "So you're all talk but no action," Eventide shrugged. His body was cremated, and his ashes are being stored in a columbarium. They're to be scattered soon. "Where?" Taylor gritted out. "In the suburbs. Were you expecting me to arrange a coffin for him and hold a funeral?" Kenneth hurriedly held Taylor back before he could lunge at Eventide. "Let's retrieve his ashes first. Our teacher is waiting for us." After getting the information they needed, Taylor, Kenneth, and the other students left the fighting arena. Taylor whirled around the second they stepped outside. "Why did you stop me? If it weren't for you, I would have killed everybody in there already." "Calm down," Kenneth said. "You're strong, but you get too worked up at times like these. That was Eventide. He's only one person, but you can't underestimate him. There was a reason why only the commander-in-chief could take him down. If we act rashly, we might not be able to get Reuben's ashes back." Taylor took a deep breath and sighed. "You're right. Eventide didn't lift a finger, but I could still feel an intense aura coming from him. I guess it would be a good idea if you stopped me. I would have messed things up again. Where should we go from here?" "Our priority should be finding Reuben's ashes before heading back. As for Eventide, we'll ask our teacher and let him make the decision." Contrary to Kenneth and Taylor's concerns, as soon as they left, Eventide breathed a sigh of relief. He wiped his sweat from his forehead. Ever since he was defeated by the commander-in-chief, he had never met anyone who could instill that same kind of fear into him. Until now. Who exactly were they? Eventide planned to report what happened today to Stephen. Kenneth, Taylor, and the other students returned home. They handed the urn with Reuben's ashes to Atticus.
"Is this what's left of Reuben?"
"Yes, they were stored at a columbarium in Washington, D.C., Kenneth replied. Atticus lost control of his emotions. He swore to avenge Reuben's death, no matter what it took. His students shouted words of encouragement. As the leader of the Hawthorne Society, it didn't take long for Atticus to compose himself. The sorrow on his face was replaced by a decisive expression. He instructed the 4 guardians and the 8 deities to step forward. "Round up your subordinates and follow me to Washington, D.C. I'll be making a memorial hall for Reuben, and we'll hold a grand funeral for him. Anyone who had a hand in his death will be laid to rest next to him." The members of the Hawthorne Society returned to Washington, D.C. This time, they moved out with all of their forces. Atticus was at the head. He led the 4 guardians, the 8 deities, and tens of thousands of the organization's members to the district. Like Reuben, Atticus chose to use the Rowe family's mansion as a base, and he even arranged one of the halls as a place to pay respect for the deceased. Reuben's portrait and the urn filled with his ashes were placed on top of a table at the center of the hall. Quincy and his son, Ronald, didn't mind that Atticus was remodeling their home. He was a member of the prestigious Hawthorne Society. The extravagant funeral they held lived up to their name. The instant they released news of Reuben's funeral, members of Hawthorne Society across the world came to attend. International enterprises from overseas sent representatives to Washington, D.C., and there were also many influential leaders from underworld circles. Even the local government in Washington, D.C. sent their own representatives to pay respect to Reuben. After centuries of hard work, not only had the Hawthorne Society made a name for themselves in the underworld, but they had also made extensive connections across the world. The hall was filled with flower wreaths from the guests. Atticus looked down at Reuben's urn with a solemn expression on his face.
"Are you watching over us, Reuben? I didn't have a chance to pass on my position to you when you were alive, but now I'll let you experience what the top of the world is like. May you rest in peace."
The members of the Hawthorne Society burst into tears. Ronald was crouched in the corner, dozing off. He hadn't slept for over 24 hours because he was busy decorating and setting up the hall. Quincy quickly shook Ronald awake and signaled for him to cry along. Ronald's acting skills were quite decent. In no time at all, tears ran down his face, even though he didn't feel a hint of sorrow. Kenneth held out a document to Atticus. "We've organized a list of people related to Reuben's death. Before he died, he killed Van, Nova, and Axel."
"I know. What else have you found out?"
"The Cassidy family in Los Angeles. Reuben was killed because of Kim Cassidy. She's a successful businesswoman. She's the CEO of Tanith Corporation, and her company has received the financial support from the Wyvern Group. They say that Sanson Corporation, Neil Brandt, and Zanger Corporation all lost to the Wyvern Group. There are rumors that Kim has a special relationship with the owner. They may have conspired against Reuben." Atticus slammed his fist on the table.
"So he died because of Kim. Reuben was never interested in relationships. He had great ambitions, but he met an untimely end because of her. She has to be buried next to him."
"There's someone else," Kenneth said. His name is Stephen Adams. He's the director of the security department at the Wyvern Group. He's Kim's ex-husband. They filed for divorce around 2 weeks ago. They say Reuben was killed by Eventide, but I believe Stephen had something to do with it.
Interesting. Since we'll be burying his ex-wife, we might as well bury him too. The two of them will accompany Reuben in death. As for the third group of people, Atticus glanced at Quincy and Ronald. Because they didn't tell us about Reuben's death, we received the news later than we should have. They also didn't fulfill their responsibilities of taking care of their guests until the very end. They could be considered accomplices. We'll bury them as well. Quincy and Ronald pleaded to be spared, but their cries fell on deaf ears. Someone drag them away, Atticus instructed. Who's the last person? The Night of Eventide, Kenneth said. He killed Reuben, but he's not that easy to deal with. He participated in numerous free-for-all fighting competitions, and he was the winner every time. The only person who's ever managed to defeat him was the commander-in-chief. Despite this one loss, Eventide's strength is undeniable. He's right, Taylor agreed. When we met Eventide in Washington, D.C., the killing intent that radiated from him was just as strong as ours. Kenneth said that we may not have necessarily won if we had fought. It makes sense because aside from the commander, no one has ever defeated him before. Atticus fixed them with a cold gaze. Even if he's strong, you shouldn't belittle yourselves. The Hawthorne Society has a long history and a deep foundation. Eventide is only one person. He's no match for us. His chilling voice sent shivers down his students' spines. Kenneth, tell the people on your list to come here immediately. All of them will be buried next to Reuben's grave. We'll start with Kim Cassidy.
Kenneth brought some of his subordinates along and rushed to the Cassidy family's villa. He introduced himself as the leader of the 8 deities of Hawthorne Society and informed them that Kim would be buried next to Reuben's grave. His introduction was short and crude. He relayed Atticus's message and left without waiting for Helen's reply. There was no need to wait for a response, because the Cassidy family would have to give up Kim whether they wanted to or not. This was Kenneth's confidence as the leader of the 8 deities. He came and went like the wind, leaving a confused Cassidy family behind. Helen and the others looked at each other. "What's the Hawthorne Society? What are the 8 deities?" Rebecca asked. Confusion was written all over her face. "Was that person crazy?" Helen was the only one who recognized the gravity of the situation.
Hawthorne Society is one of the largest underworld organizations in the country. They have hundreds of thousands of members, and Kenneth is one of the higher-ups.
"Are they really that terrifying?" Kim asked. Helen was knowledgeable, so she likely wasn't exaggerating.
Yes, they're a large organization that's been around for hundreds of years. There are rumors that the leader's martial arts are unbeatable. He has the 4 guardians and the 8 deities under his command. His subordinates are on the same level as Neil Brandt. They're skilled enough to kill anyone in seconds.
The Cassidy family exchanged a nervous glance. Rebecca frowned.
"But we've never encountered anyone from Hawthorne Society until today. Why was he so angry?"
"That doesn't mean we haven't provoked them," Harry said. "Remember what Kenneth said? He said that Kim would be buried next to Reuben's grave. There's a high possibility that Reuben was also a member of the Hawthorne Society." Helen nodded in understanding.
"That makes sense. No wonder Kenneth came here in person to warn us."
"That's not all," Harry continued. "Kenneth is one of the executives. If Reuben's death was enough to make him come here, it means that Reuben wasn't just anyone in the organization. He probably held a high status. Reuben died because of Kim. Hawthorne Society won't let this go." A troubled look passed over Helen's face.
"Are you saying that they want us to hand Kim over to settle the grudge?"
Harry shrugged. What other explanation could there be? Kim was currently in the process of advancing in her career, and it would be a great benefit to the Cassidy family. But since she had provoked Hawthorne Society, there was a risk that their family could be wiped out. Harry weighed the pros and cons. There was only one way out of this. I'm the one who caused this mess. I'll take responsibility, Kim said. Helen shot her down.
No, you can't do that.
Kim was the only hope their family had of becoming an elite family. There would be no other way if she sacrificed herself like this. They had to come up with a plan. Rebecca let out a gasp when a news article caught her eye. She waved the phone in her hand. Hawthorne Society is targeting Eventide, the Rowe family, and the entire Cassidy family. Helen staggered and gripped the corner of the table to steady herself. Her face was pale.
They're not just after Kim. They're after all of us.
Grandma, I have an idea, Harry said.
What are you waiting for? Hurry up and tell us,
Helen snapped. Reuben died because of Kim, but she wasn't the person who killed him. Everyone knows that the Wyvern Group was behind his death. Stephen had to have been involved. We should send him to Hawthorne Society and tell them that he was the one who killed Reuben. They might let us go if we personally escort the murderer to their base.
That just might work.
Helen turned to Kim.
Call Stephen and ask him to come over.
No, you're obviously trying to make Stephen take the fall. He got caught up in this because he tried to save me. I can't let him be sent to his death. Harry crossed his arms. This is no time to be sentimental. Are you implying that you want to take Stephen's place?
That's not what I meant.
Then let's call him over. Since you don't want to make the call, let your parents call him. Harry grabbed Kim's phone and passed it to Natalie. At this time, Stephen was in the CEO's office at the Wyvern Group with Dennis. Eventide just sent a message saying that Hawthorne Society is in Washington, D.C., Dennis reported. They have a big lineup. Their leader, Atticus Hawthorne, led the 4 guardians, the 8 deities, and tens of thousands of members to the district. They're holding a funeral for Reuben at the Rowe family's mansion.
So Reuben was a member of the Hawthorne Society. No wonder he was so full of himself, Stephen said.
Yeah, the leader himself is holding a funeral for him. It's obvious that he was someone important in the organization.
If Reuben didn't die, he might have become the future leader of Hawthorne Society. With someone like him at the head, chaos would have broken out. We should...
Stephen was interrupted when his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID. Kim was calling. He set aside his conversation with Dennis and answered the call.
Hi, Kim.
But it wasn't Kim's voice on the other end of the line. It was Natalie's.
Hello, Stephen? Where are you? Something serious has happened. You have to come back to Los Angeles.
Natalie didn't go into detail, but Stephen realized what was happening.
Hawthorne Society is targeting Kim.
When Stephen arrived at the Cassidy family's villa, everyone in the family was present. They all looked worried. Well, the threat of being wiped out was looming over their heads. No one would be in a good mood at a time like this. Helen started scolding him the second he stepped into the house.
You're finally here. Do you know what you've done?
On the way here, Jack informed Stephen that Kenneth had threatened the Cassidy family.
Are you all scared because of Kenneth? Then what do you suppose I should have done? Sit back and do nothing while that bastard Reuben had his way with Kim? That's not the point. We called you over to tell you that Kenneth is threatening to ruin our entire family. You're one of us, so you're also included in this threat.
Stephen found Helen's remark amusing. For as long as he could remember, she'd always tried to end his marriage with Kim. Now that the Cassidy family needed a scapegoat, he was suddenly a part of their family.
And,
Stephen asked,
we'll have to bring you to Washington, D.C. and have you apologize to Hawthorne Society, Helen said. In other words, you want to sacrifice me for a chance at survival.
It was a little awkward to have her intentions shoved in her face, but Helen answered without batting an eye.
That's right.
Stephen, we've been taking care of you ever since you married into our family. Now that we need you, you should step up, Harry said shamelessly.
Stephen, you can't go, Kim called out. Reuben died because of me. If they want someone to take responsibility, then I should go.
Natalie quickly pulled her back.
What are you talking about? She hissed. Are you treating this like a business deal, Stephen? Helen asked. You don't have room to bargain.
Stephen was touched by Kim's concern. The entire Cassidy family wanted to push him into the fire, but she was still on his side. That was enough for him.
I'll go, Stephen said, but I won't be going with any of you. They don't deserve an apology from me.
He ignored the Cassidy family and turned to Kim.
Wait 3 days for me, Kim. I'll make them disappear from Washington, D.C.
Who do you think you are? Even if you have the Wyvern Group backing you up, this is Hawthorne Society we're talking about. Their influence is more extensive than you can imagine. Harry motioned to the villa's staff. Grab him. The villa's staff stepped forward, prepared to pounce on Stephen at any second. Stephen leveled the Cassidy family with a dark look.
Are you sure that's wise?
His gaze was intimidating, and it unnerved the family. They knew how strong he was. No one dared to make a move when Stephen turned around and left the house. Helen cursed.
We just let him run away. How are we going to resolve this now?
The Cassidy family has been filled with concern once again. Helen suddenly thought of Rome.
Rebecca, call Rome and his brother. Tell them to use their connections in New York City to help us out of this.
Rebecca quickly took out her phone and made a call. At this time, Rome and his brother were sitting in their car. What did they want? Are you finally getting engaged to Rebecca? Rome's brother asked. Rome had a gloomy look on his face. Yeah, right. There's always so much going on in the Cassidy family. Nothing good has ever happened to us ever since we encountered them. It wasn't supposed to be this hard just to marry into their family. They got into even more trouble this time. What did they get themselves into now? Do you still remember Reuben? It turns out he was an important member of the Hawthorne Society. He was killed because of Kim. Now, the organization is targeting the Cassidy family. They want them to accompany Reuben in death. Helen wants us to use our connections to help them out. What the hell are we supposed to do? Rome's brother frowned. That's not going to be easy. They say Hawthorne Society is powerful. Even the Snyder family in New York City wouldn't have been a match for them. What should we do? What else can we do? We'll just have to wait and see. If the Cassidy family gets wiped out, we'll just stick to another wealthy family. If they get lucky and survive, we'll show up at the right time and take credit for being their saviors. Rome and his brother were confident that they could spin up a convincing tale. Up until now, the Cassidy family still believed that they were responsible for driving away the Snyder family and the White Horse emissaries. After Kenneth left the Cassidy family's villa, he headed to Santa Ana to find Stephen, but he wasn't at the Wyvern Group. Kenneth left a note on the front door of the building. It read, Stephen Adams, to be buried next to Reuben. Next target, Eventide. Kenneth left Santa Ana and boarded a plane back to Washington, D.C. This time, he took 3 members of the 8 deities with him. Their strength wasn't the least bit inferior to Kenneth's. Kenneth had secured the position of leader of the 8 deities because he had a skill for strategizing. You're here again, Eventide said when they walked into the fighting arena. I'm here to relay my teacher's message. As you know, Reuben's funeral is still going on. You, as his murderer, will be buried next to his grave. Atticus, the leader of the Hawthorne Society, was holding a grandiose funeral for Reuben. Everyone in Washington, D.C. had heard about it, and Eventide was no exception. Eventide was from a small country overseas. While he'd never had a direct confrontation with Hawthorne Society, he was aware of their extensive influence. But he wasn't someone who could be easily scared off. Moreover, he was working for the commander-in-chief right now. In this world, who could be more powerful than the commander? So, you're the leader of the 8 deities, Eventide said. I heard you've mastered unique hand-to-hand combat. Looks like I'll have the chance to experience it for myself. He glanced at the 3 people behind Kenneth. I suppose they're also members of the 8 deities. Yes, we're here to avenge Reuben, Kenneth declared.
Eventide assumed a fight stance. That will depend on how strong you are. Kenneth and the other 3 members of the 8 deities rushed to Eventide, confident that the 4 of them would be able to take them down. They each specialized in a different martial art, and their techniques complemented one another. Eventide was strong, but he couldn't fend off 4 skilled martial artists who worked extraordinarily well as a team. Kenneth found an opening in his defense and landed a fatal blow, ending the famed Night of Eventide. The 4 of them brought Eventide's body back to the Rowe family's mansion, shocking the entire underworld. Eventide was famous for his strength. They couldn't believe that he had died at the hands of the Hawthorne Society. Everyone was in a panic. "Cut his body to pieces," Atticus instructed. Eventide's death wasn't enough to avenge Reuben. "What about the others? Did you notify the Cassidy family and the director of the security department at the Wyvern Group?" "Yes, I've passed on your message," Kenneth replied. "Considering the reputation of our organization, I'm positive they'll show up." News of Eventide's tragic and sudden death reached Stephen. "It's a shame. I didn't expect him to be killed so suddenly. It seems like we can't underestimate Hawthorne Society's strength." Despite being a war criminal, Eventide made for a strong subordinate. His loyalty and strength would have been a great asset to the country. "Mr. Adams, why don't I dispatch the troops to deal with Hawthorne Society?" Dennis suggested. "No. The people of the underworld place importance on true strength. If we use the military to suppress them, they won't accept their defeat. I and Zachary will take care of this." Out of the 4 great generals under Stephen's command, Zachary was the strongest in terms of combat prowess. He alone could hold his ground against 1,000 people. Stephen called Zachary, and they headed to Washington, D.C. together. Atticus was waiting for them at the Rowe family's mansion. He was in the main hall, sitting at the head of the table with his eyes closed. His students didn't dare to make a sound. Sometime later, Atticus opened his eyes. "Are the Cassidy family and that security guard here yet?" A day had passed since Kenneth delivered the messages. However, there was still no movement outside. A loud noise sounded from the courtyard. A member of the Hawthorne Society rushed into the hall. "2 people broke into the house." "Kenneth, go out and check on the situation," Atticus said. Before Kenneth could leave, one of the organization's members flew past him and crashed into the wall. Zachary strolled into the hall. Hundreds of Hawthorne Society's members lay motionless on the ground around him. Stephen followed him inside. "I didn't think there was someone as strong as you in Washington, D.C. Atticus instructed the 4 guardians and the 8 deities to step up, while the rest of the members moved back to give them space. Zachary's eyes flashed with anticipation. Finally, a decent opponent. He'd taken down hundreds of the organization's members, but it had been so easy that he wasn't satisfied. It was obvious that the 4 great generals and the 8 deities were much stronger. Kenneth was the first to make a move. The 4 guardians and the rest of the 8 deities followed his lead and attacked Zachary from all directions. Anyone else would have been beaten to a pulp, but Zachary was like a phantom. He dodged the incoming attacks with lightning speed and even countered with his own move. With a single strike, 2 of the 8 deities were knocked to the floor. Atticus couldn't believe his eyes. Whoever this stranger was, he was holding his own against the combined attacks of the 4 guardians and the 8 deities. His strength was simply heaven-defying. One of Atticus's students recognized him. "That's Zachary. He's one of the 4 great generals." At some point in their long history, Hawthorne Society had sent Zachary as their lifelong pursuit. They hoped that one day they would be able to become as strong as him. They even had a portrait of Zachary back home. Suddenly, the 4 guardians and the 8 deities seemed to recognize Zachary as well. They were all familiar with his appearance since they passed by his portrait every day, but there were slight differences between the portrait and the real thing. Zachary was confused when they stopped and stared at him. "You know who I am?" Even Atticus was staring.
The more he scrutinized this stranger, the more he resembled Zachary. Was this man really one of the 4 great generals? But then again, not just anyone could impersonate Zachary. If you're really Zachary, then... Atticus shifted his gaze to Stephen. A horrifying thought crossed his mind. Are you... Stephen flashed a smile. It's exactly what you're thinking. I'm the Commander-in-Chief. Atticus hurried out of his seat and knelt in front of Stephen. He introduced himself as the leader of the Hawthorne Society. Despite Atticus's esteemed position, he could only be considered someone with a higher-than-usual status in the world of martial arts. His identity was nothing more than a speck of dust in front of the Commander-in-Chief. The 4 guardians and the 8 deities copied Atticus and got onto their knees. Atticus was terrified when it dawned on him that he had threatened the Commander-in-Chief. He lowered his head and apologized profusely for the unforgivable crime he had committed. Stephen shrugged. I killed your student, and you wanted to take revenge. There's nothing wrong with that. However, I do have a problem with Reuben. Yes, you're right. He was a traitor. I'll cancel the funeral immediately, Atticus said. Forget it. You've already started holding the funeral. Just continue. Respecting the dead is important after all. However, considering Reuben's long list of crimes, such a grand funeral is inappropriate for someone like him. Atticus, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Atticus hurriedly nodded. I understand. Instead of glorifying Reuben's death, I'll recognize his funeral and let the public know that he was a criminal. Okay. Stephen looked at the tens of thousands of members of the Hawthorne Society. It's fine if you wanted revenge, but you did try to use all of these people to kill me. You deserve some form of punishment. We're willing to accept whatever you decide, Atticus said. As a matter of fact, Stephen had already thought of how to deal with Hawthorne Society the moment he found out about Reuben's identity. Their organization was corrupt, but there were many outstanding talents among the members. It would be a waste if they continued to use their skills like this. Good. In that case, I have some requirements for your organization. First, starting today, all illegal businesses are forbidden. Any business in the gray area has to be legalized. I take it that you have no objection? None, Atticus replied. In recent years, he had gradually made adjustments to the organization's illegal businesses. Stephen's suggestion was in line with Atticus's vision of Hawthorne Society's future. As for the second requirement, Stephen looked around the hall. Your students and the rest of the members of this organization must change their professions. They will no longer be part of the underworld. I plan to recruit them and turn them into a battalion. Major General Zachary will personally train them. It's a waste for talented people like them to fight and kill for territory. They will only be harming the citizens. It would be better if they used their skills to defend our borders instead. I've already thought of a name for the group. Let's call it Fenrir. The members of the Hawthorne Society brightened at Stephen's suggestion. Becoming a soldier under the Commander-in-Chief and being personally trained by Zachary was like a dream come true. They had admired the commander and the 4 great generals ever since they won the battle 6 years ago. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Stephen glanced at Atticus. What do you think? I don't have any objections, Atticus said. They've always wanted to become one of your soldiers. However, I've never forced any of our members to do anything against their free will. Whether they want to join the military or not will be up to them. Okay. Stephen faced the tens of thousands of members of the Hawthorne Society. Do you all want to become my subordinates? Of course, if you have other ambitions, I won't force you. As soon as he finished his sentence, a resounding yes echoed in the hall. A majority of the members were filled with vigor. Even if there were a few people who didn't want to become soldiers, the rest of the members' motivation was enough to move them. All right, looks like everyone is enthusiastic about defending our country. You are all now members of Fenrir, a battalion under Major General Zachary's command, Stephen announced. As for the 4 guardians and the 8 deities, they didn't accept Stephen's offer. They were the core of the Hawthorne Society, an organization that had been around for hundreds of years. They couldn't let it fall apart so easily. Stephen had no intentions of disbanding their organization. After a fierce and chaotic arrival, the Hawthorne Society retreated from Washington, D.C. The elite families in the district knew that they had left because of the commander-in-chief. Everyone else was still speculating about their sudden disappearance. They couldn't understand why a powerful organization like the Hawthorne Society would leave so abruptly. After the obstacles were cleared, the Tanith Corporation's development in Washington, D.C. was like a sharp knife cutting through butter. Tanith Corporation took over several entertainment companies in the district and opened 3 movie theaters to support the new generation of actors. They also ventured into the electronics industry, real estate, and so on. The rapid development of Tanith Corporation once again elevated the Cassidy family's status. The family couldn't have been any prouder of Kim. Even Natalie and Kyle's status within the family had gone up. They were only second to Helen. Meanwhile, Rome and his brother received news that the Hawthorne Society had retreated, so they rushed to the Cassidy family's villa. They arrived at the same time as Stephen. "Look who it is, the Cassidy family's son-in-law. You came just in time. Hawthorne Society just left Washington, D.C., Rome said with a smirk. Stephen gave him and his brother an indifferent look. It was obvious that they were here to take credit for it. "Aren't you the ones who came at the right time?" Rome frowned. "What are you trying to say? You make it sound as if you're the one who made them leave." "It was me. I'm the one who took care of Hawthorne Society." Rome snickered. "You're funny. If it weren't for us, the Cassidy family wouldn't be here right now. Don't take credit for something you didn't do." "I think you're the ones trying to take credit here. If you really did resolve this issue, then let me ask you a question. Who's the leader of Hawthorne Society?" Rome and his brother looked at each other. They were just a pair of swindlers. How would they know who the leader is? "So you don't know?" "Of course we know who the leader is," Rome argued. "We just don't want to say it out loud in case you're planning something. Let me test you instead. Who's the leader of the Hawthorne Society?" Stephen laughed. "You have a way with words, I'll give you that. No wonder you were able to trick the Cassidy family into believing you." "Okay, I'll tell you the answer. The leader of the Hawthorne Society is Atticus Hawthorne. You'd better remember this name." Rome scoffed. "I already knew that. I was just testing you." "Is that so? Then let me ask you another question. Who's the leader of Hawthorne Society's 8 deities?" Rome resisted the urge to curse Stephen out. Why did he have so many questions? Stephen looked them in the eye. "Are you guys planning to use the same trick again?" Rome and his brother exchanged a nervous glance. They couldn't turn the question on Stephen again. "Don't you think it's time for you two to get lost? Or do you want to stay here and wait for me to expose you?" Rome and his brother had a feeling that Stephen already knew their identity. They signaled to each other with their eyes and ran off in panic. Just then, the door to the Cassidy family's villa opened. Kim came outside. She was confused when she saw Rome and his brother speedily walking down the street. Why did they leave without coming inside? "Rome and his brother are swindlers," Stephen explained. "I exposed them. They didn't want to stay and wait for me to expose their crimes. They came running as soon as it was announced that the Hawthorne Society left Washington, D.C. It's obvious what their goal was." "You mean Rome and his brother were here to try and take credit for that? Rebecca just told me that Hawthorne Society left because of them." "That's nonsense. If Rome and his brother were really that influential, why didn't they show up when the White Horse emissaries came to Los Angeles? They never went to Washington, D.C. either. They came to our house after the crisis was averted." Kim thought it over. Stephen's explanation did make sense. "Then, were you the one who forced Hawthorne Society to leave Washington, D.C.? Stephen smiled. "What do you think? Your husband is quite capable, isn't he?" "He is indeed capable, but Hawthorne Society is no pushover either. They say they're one of the most influential underworld organizations. How did you do it?" "I dealt with them with my own strength." Jasmine came up behind them. She was here to discuss business matters with Kim. Kim, don't listen to him. It's because of the Wyvern Group's owner. So it was him again, Kim said. Stephen didn't try to deny it. Anyway, I'm curious about just how capable Stephen is. The Wyvern Group's owner even agreed to attend your wedding, Jasmine said. Does he know that Stephen's preparing a wedding? Kim asked in surprise. Yeah, Mr. Lucero told me. The owner immediately agreed to attend as soon as he heard what Stephen was planning. It's unexpected, but it is a pleasant surprise. I'll finally get to meet him in person. I'm confident that I can win his heart as soon as we meet. Kim laughed. Good luck with that. Shortly after the incident with the Hawthorne Society, Kim's family gathered for a meal. Since everyone was here, Amy took the opportunity to make an important announcement. She would be going to New York City for an internship. That's a bit sudden, Kim said. I've been applying to several companies for an internship for the past 6 months, Amy explained. Last night, I received a reply from one of them. Their company is based in New York City. I see. When will you be leaving? Kim asked. As soon as possible. I booked a plane ticket last night. My flight is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I've already packed my things. The next morning, after Amy said her goodbyes, Stephen drove her to the airport before going to work. There was still some time before boarding, so Amy ordered a cup of coffee and waited inside a cafe. 2 people were chatting next to her. Are you sure he's in Santa Ana? I'm positive. He's the director of the security department at the Wyvern Group. With his current status, he'll be delighted if we tell him to come back to the Sierra family. That's true. The head of our family is his grandfather. Why wouldn't he want to return? Amy was curious about their conversation. They didn't mention any specific names, but there was only one director of the security department at the Wyvern Group. Were they talking about her brother-in-law's grandfather? Stephen had married into the Cassidy family without much questioning about his background. No one knew anything about his relatives or his friends. Amy wanted to eavesdrop further, but an announcement sounded from the loudspeaker. Her flight would be departing soon. She picked up her boarding pass, grabbed her luggage, and left the cafe. When Tanith Corporation expanded to Washington, D.C., Kim became so busy that she barely had time to eat or sleep. Stephen didn't want to see her working so hard, so instead of going to work at the Wyvern Group, he helped her out at Tanith Corporation. With his help, Kim's workload decreased to a manageable level. Stephen was working in Kim's office when her secretary knocked on the door. Mr. Adams, 2 people are looking for you. They say they're your relatives? My relatives? Stephen repeated in confusion. Okay, let them in, he said after a pause. A middle-aged man and a younger man entered the room. The middle-aged man rushed to give Stephen a hug. We've been looking for you for so long. Stephen stepped to the side and dodged his bear hug. Who are you 2? The middle-aged man introduced himself as Arjun Sierra. The younger man was Brady Sierra. We're your relatives from your mother's side of the family, Brady explained. The head of our Sierra family is your grandfather. Stephen wasn't following. As far as he knew, his parents were both from the Adams family. His mother had kicked him out without batting an eye, and the family had even sent assassins to hunt him down for thousands of miles. His mother's surname had always been Adams, not Sierra. Let me clarify, Arjun said. Your mother in the Adams family is not your biological mother. Your real mother is the daughter of the head of the Sierra family. Just think about it. If you were that woman's biological son, why would she be so cruel as to want to kill you? Stephen didn't say anything, so Arjun took his silence as an invitation to continue. Many years ago, the current head of the Adams family, your father, came to New York City and fell in love with your real mother at first sight. After dating for a time, they were engaged. At that time, she was pregnant with you. After your father returned to Washington, D.C., for the sake of the Adams family's interests, he married another woman and abandoned your mother. In the end, your mother gave birth alone. She brought you to Washington, D.C., and begged the Adams family to take you in. They agreed after much deliberation on the condition that your mother cut all ties with their family. That's why the Sierra family never reached out to you until now." This sudden revelation left Stephen in a daze. He'd always thought that he was the biological son of the head of the Adams family and his wife. It turned out that he was their illegitimate son, and he had no blood ties with his supposed mother. "Stephen, your grandfather knows that you suffered a lot after the Adams family kicked you out. He has been searching for you for a long time. We finally found you today. Come home with us," Arjun said. "We're from an upper-class family. You can live an extravagant and wealthy life if you come back," Brady added. Stephen narrowed his eyes. "The Sierra family is an upper-class family?" Well, that was interesting. Arjun and Brady misunderstood his interest in greed. "Yeah, if you want to come back, we'll make up for all the hardships you've had to suffer," Brady said quickly. "I'm not going to brag, but our family can give you anything you want." "Your grandfather misses you very much," Arjun added. Stephen gave Arjun a thoughtful look. "Is that so?" "Of course, you're his grandson." "That's why you should come home as soon as possible," Brady chimed in. Kim, who had been listening quietly from her desk, was moved by their passionate words. "Why don't you set aside some time and pay your grandfather a visit?" "I'm not going," Stephen said. "Have a lot of things to do here. I don't have time to see him. You two should head back." Brady opened his mouth to say something, but he stopped when he saw Arjun's sharp gaze. Arjun tried to smooth things over. "We understand. We're family, but this is our first meeting. You probably have a lot to think about, so we'll take our leave. Give us a call when you think things through." He and Brady said goodbye and left the office. When Kim and Stephen were alone, she came over and took a seat on the couch next to him. "Your grandfather wants to see you. Are you sure you don't want to meet him at least once?" They had been married for 3 years, but this was the first time his relatives had come to visit him. She didn't want him to have any regrets. "Do you really think they want me back? They said it themselves. The Sierra family is an upper-class family. They have a lot of connections. It doesn't make sense for the head of the family to take this long to find his own grandson." If the Sierra family really cared about him, they wouldn't have sat back and done nothing while the Adams family kicked him out and sent assassins after him. There had to be a reason why the Sierra family had come out of nowhere and sought him out today. At noon, Stephen drove to the Wyvern Group and went up to the CEO's office. "Mr. Adams, according to our investigation, what they said was true. You're the illegitimate son of the head of the Adams family." Stephen nodded. "No wonder that woman kicked me out so easily and tried to kill me because of some prophecy. She was trying to get rid of all obstacles getting in the way of my brother inheriting the family. What have you found out about the Sierra family?" "You were right. They have ulterior motives. They got caught up in some trouble recently. They were trying to expand their business, but they provoked a military general in Southeast Asia named Sanjay. He asked the Sierra family to compensate for $1 billion, and he also demanded that they send 10 people to work for him. The entire Sierra family is in a panic. They've already decided on who they want to send, but they're missing one person." "And that person is me," Stephen finished. "Yeah, I remember when we encountered Sanjay a while back. When he saw the 4 great generals, he ran away like a mouse running from a cat. Should we send over some troops and take care of it?" Dennis asked. "There's no need for that. Sanjay hasn't done anything to us yet. We'll leave him be. As for the Sierra family, just ignore them." "But," Dennis hesitated, "the head of the Sierra family is your grandfather." "Grandfather?" Stephen sneered. "If he really cared about me, I wouldn't have become the boss of the 4 great generals." Dennis fell silent. The 4 great generals came from a wealthy background, but they were abandoned by their families. They were fortunate enough to join the military and become Stephen's closest subordinates. They even made a name for themselves as the 4 great generals. Having experienced something similar himself, Dennis understood how Stephen felt. "Dennis, don't forget,
Besides Kim and her family, my only other family is the 4 great generals.
I know, Dennis said quietly. After leaving Tanith Corporation, Arjun and Brady were racking their brains, trying to figure out how to persuade Stephen. We'll be done for if we can't get Stephen to come back with us, Brady said helplessly. Why don't we just use force? No, he'll find out what we're after. Then what should we do? Arjun replayed their conversation with Stephen. To be honest, I think there's a high possibility that he does want to come with us. We're from an upper-class family. He may have married into the Cassidy family, but I doubt he has any kind of status there. To him, the prospect of an endless supply of wealth should be tempting. He's probably hesitating because this is the first time we've met. We should go back and report our progress. Maybe the head of the family will have a solution. That's a good idea, Brady agreed. What are we waiting for? Let's hurry back to New York City. Arjun and Brady returned to New York City to report the situation to the head of the Sierra family, Angelo Sierra. Angelo's second son, Callum Sierra, interrupted him before he could respond. You two are useless. You couldn't even bring back one person? Callum was skilled in handling all kinds of situations, so Angelo had always relied on him for family affairs. Brady was the oldest among the younger generation, but that didn't necessarily mean that he would inherit the family. The Sierra family emphasized the importance of one's capabilities to prevent decline and ensure prosperity. In other words, Callum also had a chance of becoming the successor. This led to many conflicts between him and Brady. Angelo waved his hand. Don't talk like that. We've never had any communication with Stephen. It's understandable that he needs time to think things over. Arjun agreed in a hurry. We should give him some time to process everything. That's right. Our family is influential, but we've never searched for him all these years. He probably hates us because he suffered so much by himself after he was kicked out of the Addams family. Callum frowned. That's exactly why we can't wait. The deadline that Sanjay gave us is 4 days. If we don't hand Stephen over, our family will be ruined. What if he needs 1 month to get it together? Are we supposed to wait 1 month? That's also true, Angelo said. What do you have in mind? If you ask me, he's hesitating on purpose. 2 people from an upper-class family suddenly approach him and call him family. He's been through a lot in the Cassidy family, so why wouldn't he want to come with us? Callum pointed out. The rest of them mulled over his words. Stephen wants to come back. He wants a luxurious and wealthy life, but it's not enough for him. He's hesitating so that we'll give him an even better offer. He didn't come back with Arjun and Brady because he's assuming that we don't think too much of him since we only sent an old man and some random son of the family to pick him up. He needs a bargaining chip, which is why... Callum paused for dramatic effect. I'll go to Santa Ana and meet him in person. With my identity, I'm confident that I can persuade him. All right, if we're going by seniority, you're considered his second uncle, Angelo said. He won't be able to refuse if you're the one asking him. And so, Callum headed to Santa Ana to look for Stephen. His arrival was grand. 10 Rolls-Royce Phantoms were parked in front of Tanith Corporation. Callum got straight to the point the second he sat down with Stephen. I'm your second uncle. I heard Arjun and Brady came over yesterday. They didn't show any sincerity, but it's not their fault. They don't know how to properly handle things. Callum pointed at the luxury cars outside. Look, I wanted everyone to know that you're a member of the Sierra family in New York City. He gave Stephen an expectant look. There was no way he was going to refuse this time. To Callum's delight, Stephen smiled and asked, So what do I need to do to become part of your family? Of course, we'll compensate you for all that you've suffered. It took us too long to find you. Callum paused as if he had suddenly thought of something. Oh, right. Before I came to Santa Ana, your grandfather told me that he wanted to appoint you as the successor of the family when you came back. You'll be inheriting his position in the future. In actuality, Callum was just talking nonsense. If Angelo wanted to appoint anyone as the successor, it would be him or Brady. Sanjay wanted one of the sons of the younger generation, and Stephen could be considered one of the candidates. If the Sierra family were to give Stephen up, they could protect the more important members of their family. If Stephen were an ordinary person, he would have been moved by Callum's passionate speech and found his offer enticing. But he wasn't just anyone. Stephen pretended to contemplate his options. "So my grandfather, whom I've never met, misses me that much?" "Yes, he misses you so much that he cries at the dinner table every night. Isn't that proof of how much he cares about you? You should come back with me to New York City." Stephen looked Callum in the eye. "Really? If he misses me that much, why didn't he personally come to pick me up?" Callum was taken aback by his question, but he recovered quickly. He immediately assumed a posture befitting an uncle. "Your grandfather is old, and he has a lot of work to do as the head of the family. Do you think it's appropriate for him to come all the way here in person to pick you up?" "I think it's very appropriate," Stephen said indifferently. "If he misses me that much, tell him to come and pick me up. If he doesn't want to, then I'm never leaving Santa Ana." Stephen waved the security guards over. "Send him out." Callum had no choice but to leave. Stephen felt Kim's gaze on him. "They have an ulterior motive," he explained before she could say anything. "Remember what the Cassidy family and the Haynes family did to you in the past? This is the same thing. They're trying to use me." After experiencing countless similar situations, Kim was well aware that the elite families considered wealth and status above all else, even if it meant throwing away one of the members. She understood why Stephen had made the decision. Angelo slammed the table in anger after hearing Stephen's demand from Callum. "Did he really say that? Who does he think he is to tell me to pick him up in person? That's ridiculous." "Calm down," Arjun said. "We don't have a choice. Even if you're the head of the family, you should accept his request. Agree to his demands, at least until this crisis is over." Callum shook his head in disapproval. "You're too naive. If the head of the family goes to Santa Ana in person, I bet Stephen will make all kinds of strange requests." "It's not like you haven't met with him before. You should already know that he's not easy to deal with." Angelo agreed with Callum. "I'm the head of the Sierra family. If I bend to his request, doesn't that mean I'm losing to him? If people find out about this, our reputation would take a hit. We'll have to think of another way." "We can just send someone to take him here by force," Brady suggested. "If we wait any longer, our entire family might be ruined." While the position of a successor hadn't been confirmed yet, Angelo didn't want to hand Brady over to Sanjay. Stephen was the perfect scapegoat. As for the rest of the 9 family members, their lives were cheap. Angelo wouldn't miss them even if they sent 100 of them over. Besides placing importance on one's capabilities, the Sierra family had always had a tradition of having a male successor. For example, Stephanie Sierra, the daughter of Angelo's 4th son, had obtained a doctorate from Harvard University. After completing her studies and returning home, her status in the family remained the same as before. The family was taught to be loyal from a young age. Even though Stephanie had been one of the first people to be selected for Sanjay, she didn't complain. While Angelo and the others were engrossed in their discussion, Stephanie overheard their conversation about Stephen. She didn't know that she had another cousin. Stephanie quietly left the house and went to Santa Ana. "Mr. Adams, there's a girl looking for you," a security guard said when Stephen arrived at Tanith Corporation. Stephen wasn't expecting anyone. "Do you know who she is?" "No, I've never seen her before. I told her to make an appointment, but she said she's in a hurry and it'll be too late by then." "Okay, I'll meet with her." Walking into the reception room, Stephen saw a young woman waiting by the window. She kept glancing at her watch and then outside, unable to sit still. "Miss, were you looking for me?" Stephanie gave Stephen a once-over before getting down to business. "I'm your cousin, Stephanie Sierra. The family's planning on taking you back to New York City by force. You should hurry up and get out of here." A car pulling up to the entrance caught her attention. She cursed. "They're already here. It's too late." Stephen briefly looked outside before turning back to Stephanie.
Are you someone the family selected to send to Sanjay?
Stephanie was surprised that Stephen already knew about Sanjay's demands.
Yes, I am. You already knew? How could I not? They kept telling me to come home and enjoy a lavish life, but in reality, they wanted me to take the fall for them.
Just then, the door to the reception room flew open. Arjun and Brady barged in. They stopped short when they saw Stephanie. "Stephanie, what are you doing here?" Arjun scoffed. "Do you even need to ask? She's here to snitch. Stephen probably already knows why we're here." "It doesn't matter if he knows or not," Brady said with a shrug. "Dying for our family could be considered an honorable deed." Stephen was amused by their logic. Was it really that honorable to die for a family he didn't know he had until a few days ago? Arjun was getting impatient. "Brady, stop wasting time. Let's bring him back and show your uncle how capable you are." Brady jerked a thumb towards the large group of people behind him. "They're all skilled in martial arts. Do you want to come along without a fuss, or do you want to do this the hard way?" Stephen cast them a sidelong glance.
"Is that all the people you've brought with you? I think you should reevaluate the situation you're in."
He gestured to the window. Brady was confused, but when he peered outside, his expression changed drastically. "What's wrong?" Arjun asked. He walked over and looked out the window. There was a crowd of people dressed in security uniforms. Noticing their gazes, the security guards raised their heads and stared inside. Arjun and Brady's car was a short distance away. The tires had been punctured. They sucked in a breath. Even though the group they had brought was strong, they probably wouldn't be able to escape unscathed.
"You still want to bring me back?"
Stephen asked. Brady knew that it was an impossible task. "Consider yourself lucky." He turned to Stephanie. "What are you waiting for? Let's go." Just as Brady was about to drag her away, Stephen grabbed his arm. He stepped in front of Stephanie.
"If you two want to leave, then leave on your own. She'll be staying here."
It was rare for a scheming, manipulative, ambitious family like theirs to have someone like Stephanie. Stephen was touched that she cared about his safety. Brady glared at her. "Stephanie, you're a member of the Sierra family. Why are you hiding behind him?" The importance of loyalty had been ingrained in Stephanie since she was young. She grew anxious when Brady questioned her.
"I'll go back with you."
Stephen frowned.
"Are you sure you want to go back? You came here to warn me. If you go back now, they won't let you off."
Stephanie forced a smile. "Don't worry about me. I'm a member of the Sierra family. Where else can I go?" She was so insistent that Stephen had no choice but to let her follow Arjun and Brady out of the building. After they left, he gave Dennis a call.
"Keep an eye on Stephanie. Tell me immediately if something strange happens."
At this time, Angelo had brought his subordinates and 8 out of the 10 people they had selected to a house on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Sanjay had proposed to trade in a small place like this because he didn't want to step foot in an international metropolis like New York City. Arjun and Brady brought Stephanie over. "She ratted out our plan to Stephen. Now he knows what we're after," Brady spat. "He has a lot of people on his side. It won't be that easy to catch him," Arjun said. Angelo was furious. "Stephanie, you ruined everything. Are you trying to get back at us for choosing you?"
"No, that's not it. I just feel bad for Stephen. He's been through a lot. He doesn't deserve to be sent to Sanjay."
"That's not something you need to worry about," Angelo said angrily. "She's made a mistake, so she needs to be punished," Callum suggested. "If we're not strict with our members, people will think they can oppose us." "Call her parents over," Angelo instructed. Stephanie leaked family secrets and colluded with outsiders. "According to our family's rules, she'll be subjected to 100 beatings," Callum announced. Stephanie's parents objected, but he simply told them that these were the rules of their family. If they continued to protest, they would have to join her. The family's rules hadn't changed for the past few generations. Stephanie wasn't the first to take on this cruel punishment. Everyone in the family was aware of how ruthless Callum was. He had always been the person who enforced their rules. There was nothing Stephanie's parents could do. They only had a daughter, and their status in the family was so low that they didn't have the right to speak. While they were at a loss, Stephen pushed open the gates and walked in. "You haven't asked me for my permission. Who dares to harm my cousin?" Dennis had been keeping close tabs on Stephanie. Stephen rushed over as soon as he was told that something had happened. Stephen stepped in front of Stephanie. Angelo's eyes lit up. "Are you Stephen? And who are you supposed to be?" "I'm your grandfather. I knew you'd come to see me. You know what they say, blood is thicker than water." Stephen shot Angelo a disdainful look. "Really now? Your family provoked Sanjay, a military general in Southeast Asia, so you've been rushing to find a scapegoat. That's why you look for me in Santa Ana. Is this what you call blood is thicker than water?" Angelo wasn't fazed, even though Stephen had seen right through them. "If you already knew, why did you come here?" Stephen had already found out, so there was no need to continue pretending. He had delivered himself straight to their doorstep. Angelo wouldn't be letting him go so easily. "I'm only here to defend Stephanie. Nothing more, nothing less," Stephen said. "No one has the right to harm her, not even you." Angelo bristled with anger. "Watch your tone. I'm your grandfather. That's a fact that cannot be changed. Do you think it's appropriate for you to talk to your elder like this?" "Sure, I can treat you as my grandfather, but will you treat me like your grandson? It's been so many years, but you're only showing up now. And as soon as we meet, you're sacrificing me to Sanjay. You should ask yourself this question. Are you worthy of being my grandfather?" Even if Stephen hadn't pointed it out, Angelo knew that what he was doing wasn't right. But for the sake of their family's survival, he had to go through with it. Callum spoke up. "Arjun and Brady failed to bring back Stephen, but he came here willingly. How can we let him go so easily?" He signaled to the Sierra family's subordinates. "Catch him." They rushed over and surrounded Stephen, but in the next instant, they were on the ground. None of them had been a match for him. Callum pulled out a golden whip, swinging it in his hand. "Looks like you have some skill. Even though we've only met recently, you're still a member of this family. I'll teach you a lesson as your uncle. You should be honored." "Uncle Callum, don't!" Stephanie knew that Callum was strong without weapons, but he was even more fearsome with the whip in hand. She didn't want Stephen to get hurt on her behalf. "I'm the one who violated our family's rules. Take it out on me." Stephen didn't expect Stephanie to try and protect him at the expense of her own life. "Step back. I'll deal with him." Stephanie didn't know why, but the confidence in his tone made her feel like she could believe him. "Okay, be careful." Stephen beckoned Callum to come at him with a finger. Callum was infuriated by his provocative actions and charged at him. When he raised his whip to strike, Stephen grabbed it with his bare hand and struck with his other palm. The whip cracked and shattered to the floor. Everyone stared at the broken whip in astonishment. This whip was a family heirloom. It was decorated with golden embroidery, but despite its beautiful design, it was sturdy. How had someone like Stephen broken it with one strike? Callum clenched his fists. "Do you know what that is? That's our family's heirloom." Stephen shrugged. "Okay, so I broke a fancy whip. What are you going to do about it?" As the person who enforced the Sierra family's rules, letting the golden whip be broken was a shame that Callum would never be able to get rid of. "You are dead." Callum lunged for Stephen and attacked with his full strength. Stephen dodged him without even breaking a sweat. Callum was one of the strongest people in the family, but he couldn't gain the upper hand. After exchanging a few blows, it was obvious that Callum alone wouldn't be able to take Stephen down. Angelo waved his hand, and several hundred of his subordinates rushed out. "Stephen, I can tell that you're good at fighting," Angelo shouted. "But I have many subordinates on my side. No matter how skilled you are, can you take them all on?" Stephen grinned.
I guess we'll just have to find out. But aren't you embarrassed? You're the head of an upper-class family, but you're using this many people to fight against one person.
Angelo was at a loss for words. Stephen was right. If word got out, their family would be humiliated. He waved his hand. Fine, you can go. Arjun and Brady tried to protest. Wait, are you sure that's a good idea? Sanjay's deadline was getting closer. If Stephen were to leave now, it would be hard to get him back. Angelo heaved a sigh. We can't risk our reputation. We'll let him go for today and catch him tomorrow. Since the head of the family had made his decision, no one tried to argue with him. Stephen turned to Stephanie. Let's go. Arjun grew nervous. Hold on, he wants to bring Stephanie with him. It'll be fine, Angelo said confidently. I'd like to see if he can get her to go with him. He was certain that Stephanie would refuse out of loyalty to the Sierra family. But to everyone's surprise, Stephanie agreed. They watched helplessly as she and Stephen left together. There was nothing they could do to stop them. Arjun let out a sigh. Do you still care about something like reputation at a time like this? You have to think about the big picture, Angelo said in exasperation. Even if we get through this hurdle, it won't make a difference if our name is smeared. Besides, do you really think Stephen came alone? He's cunning. He definitely has a few tricks up his sleeve. But what about Sanjay? Arjun had the most sons in the Sierra family. If they couldn't get Stephen before the deadline, there was a high possibility that they would have to select one of his sons. He would have one less chance of having one of his sons become the successor. Don't worry, I've already thought of a solution, Angelo said. Stephen is cunning, and he's good at fighting. Even Callum can't defeat him. Taking him down head-on isn't going to work. We'll switch our target to his wife. Kim Cassidy? A wave of anticipation washed over Arjun. What's the plan? Angelo beckoned them to come closer, and they huddled in a circle. After hearing the plan, everyone nodded in approval. Since everyone is in agreement, I'll leave this to Callum. Stephen brought Stephanie to Tanith Corporation and introduced her to Kim. Kim tidied up a room that no one was using at the company for Stephanie. The two of them had similar personalities, so they hit it off right from the beginning. They were like old friends who hadn't seen each other for a long time. They never ran out of topics. It was like they could talk forever. Kim offered Stephanie a temporary job. She readily agreed. Stephen was glad to see them getting along so well. He decided to leave work early and cook a hearty meal for them. He wasn't worried about Kim being alone because she had Camilla as her personal bodyguard. When it was time to go home, Kim invited Stephanie to their home and told her that Stephen had already prepared dinner. Stephanie was curious as to how good his cooking was. The car was already waiting for them when they went downstairs. Just as Camilla was about to open the car door for them, she spotted a beam of light out of the corner of her eye. A sniper was on the roof of the building across from Tanith Corporation, aiming a rifle in their direction. As a retired Special Forces officer, Camilla's senses were sharp. The light disappeared in an instant. Miss Kim, be careful! Camilla rushed to push Kim and Stephanie out of the way. A split second later, a bullet was lodged into the cracks of the pavement. Get in the car! Camilla shouted. Kim and Stephanie hurried into the back seat, while Camilla got in the driver's seat. She stepped on the accelerator and drove off. The sniper fired twice in quick succession. The first bullet hit one of the doors, and the other bullet hit the back of the car. Camilla sped down the street. When she reached an intersection, a car drifted sideways in front to stop them. A group of people wearing masks and holding steel pipes walked up to their car. They slammed their weapons on the hood. When they were satisfied with the damage, they walked back to their car and drove away. After everything calmed down, Camilla turned around. Miss Kim, Miss Stephanie, are you two all right? I'm fine, they said. Camilla got out of the car to check on the front. It was severely damaged. She looked up in the direction where the car had disappeared. Strange. Did they just come to destroy the hood? When they arrived at Riverview Villa, Camilla gave Stephen a rundown of what had happened. He went outside and inspected the car. One bullet hit the door and the other hit the back. It's like they were shooting at random. They weren't aiming for your lives. Yeah, they have a lot of people on their side, Camilla said. It would have been difficult for me to protect Miss Kim and Miss Stephanie by myself, but they didn't attack. They just smashed the hood and left. I believe they were giving us a warning. At that moment, Stephen's phone rang. It was an unknown number. When he picked up, a familiar voice sounded from the other end of the line. Stephen, this is Callum. Stephen instantly grasped the situation when he heard Callum's voice. The Sierra family was behind this. Is something the matter? Stephen asked patiently. I heard your wife was attacked and almost got in a car accident. You should tell her to be more careful. Who knows, maybe next time the bullets will hit their target. Callum sounded smug. I know you were behind it, Stephen said. Are you trying to threaten me into coming back? Callum chuckled. Our family was thoughtful enough to recognize you as one of us. It's too bad that you didn't know how to repay the favor. You left us with no choice. Callum, you can do whatever you want to me, but targeting my wife is crossing the line. Stephen didn't wait for a reply before hanging up. He scrolled through his contacts for Atticus's number. Callum looked down at his phone with a smirk. What are you going to do about it? Angelo and the others were waiting for his update. How'd it go? He's stubborn as always, Callum replied. If we keep this up, he'll eventually give in. But if he refuses to surrender, then the next bullet will be aimed at Kim's head. Angelo approved. At that moment, Angelo received a call from an unknown number. When he answered the call, the person on the other line introduced himself. Mr. Angelo, I'm the leader of Hawthorne Society, Atticus Hawthorne. The Sierra family was an elite family, but they couldn't compete with Hawthorne Society. Their organization was large, and they had a long history. Angelo had to be cautious. He didn't doubt the person's identity. After all, who would have the courage to impersonate the head of the Hawthorne Society? Angelo greeted Atticus respectfully. May I ask why you're calling? Atticus didn't sound pleased. Mr. Angelo, you don't take our organization seriously, do you? You came to our territory to do business, and you didn't come to greet me. Angelo was suddenly enlightened. There was an unwritten rule in the underworld circles. Any outsider who stepped into someone's territory had to give them their greeting before doing business. For example, killing. Hawthorne Society's influence spanned a majority of the country. Los Angeles was part of its territory. Callum had assembled a large mob and even sent out snipers, but he hadn't informed Hawthorne Society beforehand. No wonder they were angry. I'm very sorry for my oversight. I'll personally come to pay you a visit. However, we're in Los Angeles to take care of an important matter. Please overlook it just this once. In reality, Atticus had been conflicted after he received Stephen's call. Angelo was Stephen's grandfather, but they had been caught up in some conflict that couldn't be resolved. Atticus was carrying out Stephen's instructions, but he had to tread carefully. Angelo and Stephen may be at odds now, but there was a possibility that they might make up in the future. If that happened, and Atticus got on the Sierra family's bad side, what would become of their organization? As such, Atticus chose not to comment on Angelo's request and decided to persuade him to stand down instead. I understand. I won't stop you from taking action in Los Angeles, but I hope you can keep a low profile. It would be even better if you left immediately. There's someone in Los Angeles that you shouldn't provoke. That's all I'll say. I hope you take care of yourself. Atticus hung up without waiting for a reply. What did he say? Callum asked. He warned us that there's someone in Los Angeles who we shouldn't provoke and that we should leave as soon as possible. Angelo paused, thinking it over. I heard the commander-in-chief is on vacation here. Atticus couldn't have been talking about him, right? Even if he is here, so what? Callum smirked. If we keep a low profile and don't provoke him, he'll ignore whatever we do. All right, the most important thing right now is to capture Stephen and report to Sanjay. Angelo looked around. Well, why isn't Stephen here yet? Is he hiding because he's scared? A sharp voice sounded from the entrance.
Who said I was hiding?
Stephen walked into the gates. He was alone. "Let's see how long you can be full of yourself," Angelo said. He was certain that Stephen was here to surrender. Callum had a similar mindset. "Finally, do you know how long we've been waiting?" He turned to Angelo. "We should hurry and contact Sanjay. Tell him that we're ready."
"I'm not here to surrender. I'm here to teach you a lesson,"
Stephen said. "Teach us a lesson? Feel free to try," Angelo challenged. Ever since Stephen broke the Sierra family's heirloom, Angelo had called over more of their first-rate subordinates from New York City. Stephen wouldn't be able to escape this time. Stephen fixed Angelo with a cold look.
"You can target me all you like, but you can't target my wife. Especially you, Callum."
The second these words left his mouth, he moved at blinding speed and punched Callum in the stomach, sending him crashing into the opposite wall. Callum fell to the ground, coughing violently. Angelo quickly ordered his subordinates to attack. Hundreds of thousands of people rushed toward Stephen like a tide. Stephen swept through the waves, and the crowd collapsed in an instant. The aftermath caused tables and chairs to break and dust to spew in all directions. Angelo hadn't expected Stephen to be so strong. He'd underestimated him, and he had no one else to use. Arjun and Brady weren't the fighting type, so there was no hope. Stephen stepped in front of Angelo with a warning look in his eyes.
"You're my grandfather, so I won't do anything to you. But remember, if you target my wife again, it won't end so easily."
Without waiting for an answer, he turned around to leave. Angelo's phone rang. The phone number on the screen made Angelo's heart lurch. He answered the call with shaky fingers and stuttered out a greeting. A rough voice sounded from the other end of the line.
"I'm coming to Los Angeles tomorrow. I thought I should inform you so you can make preparations. Is the money ready? And have you selected the 10 candidates?"
"They're ready." Not only had Angelo failed to capture Stephen, but he had also even run away with Stephanie. Angelo looked haggard after the call ended. He sighed. This was the end of their family. "Grandpa, I'm back." Angelo snapped his head up at the sound of a familiar voice. It was Stephanie. Stephen stopped in his tracks when he saw Stephanie.
"Why did you come back?"
he asked in confusion. "I'm sorry for not telling you," Stephanie said apologetically. "Above all else, I'm a member of the Sierra family. They're facing a crisis right now. How could I leave them alone?"
"But they want you to die for them. They're not worth it."
"It's not a matter of worth. I'm doing this out of my own free will. Also, Kim was targeted because of me. I can't let that happen again."
"It has nothing to do with you," Stephen said quietly. "Even if you didn't leave the family, they would have resorted to the same underhanded tactic."
"Stephen, don't try to persuade me. I've already decided to stay. I'm a member of this family, so I have an obligation to see things through." Stephen let out a sigh.
"All right, since you're staying, I'll be staying too. I'll go with you to see Sanjay."
He couldn't let her go alone. Stephanie quickly tried to talk him out of it. "You don't have to do this. I heard Sanjay is cruel and merciless." Stephen smiled.
"Don't worry, I've already made my decision."
Angelo, Arjun, Brady, and the others were relieved to hear him say that. As long as Stephen was willing to give himself up, none of them would have to take any substantial risks.
"Someone tie him up,"
Brady called out to his subordinates. Stephen glared at him.
"I said I'm staying. There's no need to restrain me. Besides, even if you did tie me up, do you think your flimsy rope can stop me?"
Brady fell silent. Angelo signaled for Brady to leave.
"Forget it. I believe him."
That night, Stephen stayed with the Sierra family. A guest room had been arranged for him. To be on the safe side, the Sierra family sent quite a number of people to guard his room. The next morning, Angelo received a call from Sanjay. They agreed on a time and a place to meet. Angelo instructed his subordinates to bring Stephen, Stephanie, and 8 others to the designated location. It was far away from the heart of the city. There were 10 off-road vehicles, and 2 men were stationed in front of each one with an AK-47 in their hands. There were also motorcycles and light armored vehicles. Sanjay had brought around 1,000 people, and their equipment and weapons were of excellent quality. These soldiers were experienced in battle, and they were skilled enough to wipe out the entire Sierra family. When the Sierra family arrived, Sanjay jumped out of one of the trucks with an AK-47 in his hand. "Have you brought what I asked for?" "Yes, I'll make the arrangements right away," Angelo said. Sanjay had demanded 100 billion from the Sierra family. Even for them, this was a huge sum, and their business would be negatively affected. Angelo had already come up with a plan. He hesitated while he was instructing his finance staff to transfer the money. 1 billion is a lot of money. Our family can't afford it at the moment. Do you think you can lower the amount a bit? I can transfer 50 billion first and the rest of the money at a later date. Sanjay didn't react. "So your family's short on money. I'm not in the business industry, but I understand your concerns very well. I'm a kind and generous person, so I'm willing to accept your request. However, there are 10 warships with 100,000 people on board. They're waiting for me to pay them for their service. A mere 50 billion is not enough. I wouldn't want them to get angry and attack your family in New York City." Sanjay's tone was casual, but his warning rang loud and clear. The Sierra family's estate was located right next to the sea. Although Sanjay wouldn't approach the country's territory over the ocean, if they fired a long-range missile, the entire family could be annihilated in seconds. Angelo put on a smile and assumed a lighthearted tone. "You have 100,000 soldiers to compensate. How can we drag you down? I'll wire 100 billion immediately." As Angelo had promised, he instructed his finance staff to transfer 100 billion into Sanjay's overseas bank account. Sanjay confirmed the transaction and patted Angelo's shoulder with a smile. "I'm sure my 100,000 soldiers stationed at sea will thank you for your kindness. By the way, have you brought the 10 people I asked for?" "Yes, they're right here." Angelo asked Arjun to bring them out. Stephen and Stephanie were at the front of the group. "I've also prepared a document including their names and their connection to our family." Sanjay was satisfied. He instructed his people to lead them to their van. "Let's get going," Sanjay instructed. He'd been keeping a low profile ever since he set foot in this country, but he didn't want to stay for too long. 6 years ago, Sanjay had a run-in with the 4 great generals and the fearsome commander-in-chief. He had never forgotten their encounter, and he was afraid that they would target him. He entered the country illegally, and if he was discovered, the consequences would be dire. He had even stationed 10 warships nearby. Sanjay and his entourage jumped into the van. He had taken a huge risk coming to Los Angeles, but he'd obtained 100 billion from the Sierra family and 10 people they could add to their troops. The most important thing right now was to leave the country safely. Because Sanjay and his convoy had secretly entered the country, they didn't take the main road. Instead, they took a detour along the muddy mountain path. Sanjay kept urging them to move faster. He grew increasingly uneasy at the thought of staying longer than they had to.
"To think that you're a military general was stepping on enemy territory enough to scare you to this extent?"
Sanjay was startled and whirled around. He saw one of the Sierra family's people leaning against the back of the van. He had a leisurely look on his face, as if he didn't take him seriously. Sanjay recalled that his name was Stephen Adams from the document that Angelo had provided. "What did you say?"
"I said, you're a coward."
Stephen emphasized each word.
"Are you running away this fast because you're afraid that you'll be discovered by the military?"
"Why would I be afraid of this country's military?" Sanjay retorted. "I have 100,000 troops. Who can do anything to me?" In reality, he was afraid, but he would never admit that in front of someone like Stephen. He had his pride and his reputation to uphold.
"Sanjay, don't forget where you are," Stephen warned. "Our country has a saying, those who provoke us will meet their end even if they're far away. Do you think your army will have an advantage just because they're bordering our territory?"
Sanjay felt a chill down his spine. The events from 6 years ago came rushing back. At that time, one of the 4 great generals, Zachary, had charged into Sanjay's base alone and almost wiped out his entire army. If it weren't for Sanjay's good luck, he would have been killed a long time ago. He had never forgotten that incident. Also, Stephen continued, did you really think that you were going to be able to sneak onto our territory without being detected? Our security isn't that weak. You aren't the only one who kept a low profile. Sanjay's uneasiness grew. What are you trying to say? Thinking back, it had been a little strange that he hadn't encountered any obstacles when he snuck into the country. No matter how well he hid, it was impossible for them to not leave any traces behind. General Sanjay, I'll give you a chance, Stephen said with a smile. If you release us and admit your wrongdoings, I'll consider letting you leave the country alive. Sanjay threw his head back and laughed. So you were trying to scare me into letting you go? Keep dreaming. Who do you think you are, the commander-in-chief? Yeah, I am the commander-in-chief. What a lunatic. I'm warning you. I'll kill you if you don't shut your mouth right now. Are you still threatening me? Okay, I'll give you another chance. Think it over carefully. If you do what I ask of you, then I guarantee that you'll be able to leave the country smoothly. Of course, if you insist on resisting, I'll have no choice. Sanjay looked out the window. They were getting closer to the water. Be quiet and stay put, or I'll toss you into the ocean and feed you to the sharks. Instead of making threats, you should think about how to deal with the people blocking your path. A group of off-road vehicles with the logo of the military appeared in front of the van. A man in uniform was crouching on top of the truck in the lead. He jumped down. Sanjay squinted to get a better look at the man's face. He gasped when the man came closer. Major General Zachary? That was why his journey into the country had been so smooth. They had been tracking him and keeping an eye on his movements since the very beginning. Sanjay's stomach dropped as he remembered Zachary's carnage 6 years ago. He hurried out of the van and raised his hands. I surrender. Please don't shoot. Zachary narrowed his eyes. You're brave for bringing your troops onto our territory. Sanjay was filled with terror. He shook as he asked Zachary to spare him and promised that he would never come here again. Zachary chuckled in response. It's too late for that. Just now, someone gave you 2 chances. But it's a shame you didn't take either one of them. Sanjay suddenly thought of Stephen. How would Zachary know about his conversation with him? Unless... Stephen stepped out of the van and walked up to Zachary. That's right, I'm the commander-in-chief. Zachary and his troops saluted him respectfully. Stephen turned and looked Sanjay in the eye. Why did you trespass on our territory? You even made a commotion and brought 100,000 soldiers. Are you looking down on our country? Sanjay was unnerved by Stephen's intimidating gaze. Mr. Adams, please understand. I came here to settle a personal grudge. I didn't mean any harm to your country. Why would you need 100,000 troops for a personal grudge? The Sierra family has many subordinates, and their resources are extensive. I came with this many troops to be on the safe side. We never planned to threaten your country, Sanjay explained in a shaky voice. Stephen didn't doubt him. The fear in his eyes was genuine. Sanjay, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. You came here to settle a grudge and didn't mean any harm. However, it's a fact that you've stepped on our territory. If I let you go, how am I supposed to explain this to our citizens? Naturally, Sanjay was a sensible person. If you have any requests, please let me know. You don't have to be so nervous. I know you came here to ask the Sierra family for 100 billion. Judging from the size of your army, I believe that 500 billion shouldn't be too much to ask for in exchange for your freedom. 500 billion? Sanjay stuttered. That was 5 times the amount he had taken from the Sierra family. It was a heavy price to pay, but he couldn't show any sign of reluctance. The man in front of him was the commander-in-chief. Ending his life would be as simple as waving a hand. Noticing Sanjay's hesitation, Stephen's lips curled into a smile. What's wrong? You don't seem to approve. Do you think I'm asking for too much? Of course not. I'll do as you say, Sanjay said quickly. He had brought along several people in charge of finances to oversee the 100 billion transactions from the Sierra family. He instructed them to transfer the money. Stephen contacted Rosalind, who was the most skilled at online security among the 4 great generals, to complete the transaction. Shortly afterwards, she gave him a call and informed him that the 500 billion had been received. Stephen turned to Sanjay in satisfaction. Good work. Of course, I'll keep my promise and let you leave the country. But I'm giving you a warning. If I see you on our territory again, there will be no second chances. I understand. Sanjay had lost 500 billion. It greatly reduced his resources. After all, maintaining such a large troop required enormous financial support. Sanjay regretted his decision and swore that he would never come here again. Just as he was about to leave, Stephen called out to him. Wait! Sanjay's heart caught in his throat. He was afraid that Stephen would go back on his promise. He turned around slowly. Do you have any other requests, Mr. Adams? Stephen pointed at the van behind him. Those 9 people from the Sierra family are our country's citizens. Take them back before leaving. Sanjay heaved a sigh of relief. I'll personally send them back. He had briefly flipped through the documents from Angelo that included a list of the 10 people's identities. Stephen was Angelo's grandson, so Sanjay couldn't carelessly send these 9 people back. He had to ensure their safety. Stephen slid open the door to the van and found Stephanie and the others inside. I've taken care of it. None of you will be taken away. Sanjay will send you back later. The 9 of them were skeptical. When Zachary blocked the road earlier, they had huddled in the back of the van in fear. They didn't know what had happened outside, and they also weren't aware of Stephen's identity. Stephanie was the first to shake off her doubts. I believe you, Stephen. Stephanie, what are you going to do from here on out? Stephen didn't want a kind-hearted girl like her to stay with a heartless and manipulative family. I should go back to my family, Stephanie said after a pause. They're my home. Okay. Stephen didn't say anything else. He'd already predicted her answer, and he respected her decision. Now that Sanjay was no longer a threat, she should be safe when she went back. After Stephen said goodbye to Stephanie, Sanjay and his subordinates sent the 9 of them back to the Sierra family. Upon their return, panic washed over the Sierra family. General Sanjay, you haven't left yet? Angelo asked carefully. He was concerned that Sanjay had more demands. Sanjay was nervous when Angelo spoke so respectfully. Mr. Angelo, there is no need to address me with honorifics. I'm here to bring back your family. It's not necessary for them to come back with us. Angelo gave him a suspicious look. He couldn't understand why Sanjay had suddenly changed his mind. Also, you can start whatever business you want in Southeast Asia. I won't stop you. If you need any help, let me know. Angelo was about to ask what was going on, but Sanjay continued. Oh, right. You've been inconvenienced because of me. I'd like to apologize for that. By now, Angelo and the others were utterly confused. Sanjay was a demanding and troublesome military general from overseas. He wasn't one to change his attitude so suddenly. It felt a little surreal. As if noticing his confusion, Sanjay put on a smile. You have someone incredible as part of your family. From the Sierra family's reactions, Sanjay realized that they didn't know Stephen's identity as the commander-in-chief. He guessed that there was some sort of internal conflict that he wasn't aware of, and Stephen was hiding his identity for personal reasons. Sanjay didn't think it would be appropriate for him to reveal Stephen's identity, so he could only be vague and give them a hint. As long as you treat him well, your family's future will be secured. Unfortunately, Angelo didn't catch on. I'm sorry, but I'm not following. Who are you referring to? Sanjay sighed inwardly. The Sierra family was an upper-class family. Why was their intelligence so lacking? Although they were stupid, he couldn't express his opinion out loud. I can only tell you one thing. It's related to the commander-in-chief. Angelo's confusion lifted, but only slightly. Was this the commander-in-chief's order? But our family doesn't have any connections with him. Why would he help us? It didn't make sense for the commander to help them just because they were citizens of the U.S. There were so many people in the country. He wouldn't be able to keep tabs on everyone, and it was also unrealistic for him to be everywhere at once. Furthermore, despite the status of the Sierra family, it couldn't be compared to the country as a whole. Brady, who had been silent all this time, suddenly had a realization. I remember now. We forgot all about him. Who? Angelo asked. Patrick. He's a soldier. I heard he recently moved to the border and serves in a brigade that works for the commander-in-chief. Angelo's eyes lit up in understanding. How could I have forgotten about my grandson, Patrick? He was the one who asked the commander to help us. Arjun agreed. That has to be the case. There's no other explanation. The fact that the commander was willing to help us proves how important Patrick is to him. I don't know how many people are in his brigade, but there should still be at least a couple hundred. Patrick was able to stand out, even though there were so many soldiers. Angelo clasped his hands together in excitement. Patrick has done our family a great service. Sanjay was speechless by the Sierra family's wild imagination. He felt the urge to slap some sense into them and tell them that Stephen was the commander-in-chief. But he held it in. After his encounter with the commander-in-chief and Zachary, Sanjay had promised himself that he wouldn't get involved in other people's family affairs. He gave the Sierra family an awkward smile of goodbye and took his leave. The Sierra family was too caught up in their excitement to notice that Sanjay had left. Not only had they survived this crisis, but they had also received Sanjay's permission to do business in Southeast Asia. More importantly, they realized that their family had someone this incredible. Callum also had a realization of his own. Stephen probably knew that the commander-in-chief favors us. What's stopping him from using our family's name to do whatever he wants outside? I wouldn't put it past him, Brady said. We have to give him a warning. We can't let him go around using our family's name to swindle other people. Angelo scanned the faces of the people Sanjay had brought back. Stephen wasn't among them. We should go out and find him. Before anyone could leave, Stephen showed up. There's no need to look for me. I'm already here. Stephanie greeted him. Stephen nodded in her direction before walking up to Angelo. Stephen, you came at the right time, Angelo said solemnly. It was because of the commander-in-chief that Sanjay let you go. I'm sure you already knew about this. Even though you're my grandson, I'm warning you now not to use our family's name to mess around outside. You knew the commander was on our side. That's why you came back without us having to catch you, Callum chimed in. Stephen gave both of them an unimpressed look. You think I came all the way to establish a connection with the Sierra family? You're overestimating yourselves. I'm here to give you a warning. Stephanie is under my protection. If you hurt her, I won't let you off. Show some respect when you talk to me, Angelo demanded. Who do you think you are, the commander-in-chief? That's right. I am the commander. I asked Sanjay to bring back the 10 people you selected. The Sierra family laughed. If you're the commander, then any one of us could have the qualifications to take your place, Callum said. Whether you believe me or not is up to you. I've already given you my warning. Stephen turned to leave. Take care of yourselves. With that, he left without sparing them another glance. As for what would become of the Sierra family, he didn't want to know.